The biggest reason that I voted for Trump in the 2016 election was because I wanted to out that the establishment on both sides were willing to work together to keep potential outsiders like Trump or Bernie Sanders on the left out. We saw how Bernie was screwed over by the DNC, and we saw how the establishment people like Jeff Flake, John McCain, others worked in collusion with Democrats to spread all sorts of false information, such as the dossier, to get investigations into Trump, etc. And also to show how the media is just mouthpieces for this establishment in places like the intel community, the establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans, but primarily the establishment Democrats. Trump has accomplished all of that, more than I could have ever hoped so, and it's not even because he intentionally did anything to make it happen. What it is these groups couldn't help themselves. So I want to talk about the media in particular. There's an article out by Matt Taibbi. Now, Taibbi's a left-wing person. I would disagree in a lot of his politics, but I've enjoyed reading him since the 2008 financial crisis. He did a lot of work talking about how insane a lot of these banks were, the corruption that was going on, the bad bets that they were making, how it was shady that they were getting bailed out by our tax dollars, and I agreed with all that, and I thought he was an excellent writer on this. He wrote for the Rollingstone at the time, but has since moved on from there. He's one of these people on the left with other people like Glenn Greenwald, again, who I don't agree with everything they say, but have realized that this Russia hoax was ridiculous from the get-go and that this was all a witch hunt. Taibbi has put out an article, which I'll link below. I'm not even going to go through like I normally would because it is so huge, and it is mind-blowing to show just how damning the entire Russia collusion narrative has been for the mainstream media. It is absolutely ridiculous. He says that it's even worse than the WMD story of Iraq having WMDs that all the media fell for, hook, line, and sinker, back in the early 2000s. Now, my contention's been from the get-go that I found it absurd that the same media people that after the Iraq WMD situation said, "Our bad, we apologize, we should have been more critical, we shouldn't have just taken the intel community at face value," are now, 12 years later, telling us not only are they taking the intel community at face value, but if we question the FBI or other agencies, then we're hurting America. And it's terrible when Trump or any of us do that. So not only are they not reporting on possible abuses and possible incorrect information coming from these agencies, but they're telling us, the American people, that if we look into it and we seek to do the job the journalists are unwilling to do, then we're hurting America. That's how far the media has fallen. And Taibbi concludes at the end of this article that if things don't change, the WMD Iraq story damaged incredibly the credibility of the media, but this has the potential to absolutely destroy the media because they have been so ridiculous. He goes through case by case point over and over. For example, he lists a bunch of stories that the media reported as true of things that Russia was doing that ended up being totally false, such as that they changed vote tallies or that they hacked energy grids and things like that. Or stories such as that Manafort met Julia Assange in an embassy, which was a total lie. Or stories that Michael Cohen was in Prague, which was a total lie. Or stories such as that Trump Jr. Had information about the WikiLeaks drop of the DNC emails before they were released, which ended up being a total lie, over and over. And just other situations how the media was uncritical the entire time and just took the information that was being provided because they were basically hashtag the resistance and no longer journalists. And it talks about how some credible journalist people that he respects were basically like, yeah, but if we told the truth or if we actually did investigating, we'd be helping Trump's side. And we can't do that. That's not real journalism then. This story has been a sham from the get-go, and this article is absolutely fantastic. I recommend that everyone reads it. That just shows how unbelievably biased the media was, how they've lost all credibility, and how disgusting this was, and it hampered the Trump administration and could have further implications in the future. And this is written by someone who dislikes Trump, mind you. He's just ashamed to see what the media has become. How can we have any faith in these people? They're still out there. There's not going to be mea culpas. If there are, it'll just be lip service. We saw this after the Covington story. They came out with the Covington story, smeared these kids, admitted that they got the story wrong, and then right out of the gate jumped on the Jussie Smollett story, which was another lie. It is clear at this point that the mainstream media, which is over 90% establishment Democrat, is not journalist anymore. When they pound themselves on the chest and say, we're the last bastion of democracy, democracy dies in darkness, the free press is so important to the American people, we're their voice, we're how they're informed. No, they're not. That's what the free press is supposed to be. But the vast majority of them aren't that. They're interested in pushing the establishment Democratic narrative and basically being the allies of the intel community. And as Taibbi correctly outlines here, If that's going to be the relationship of the press, instead of speaking truth to power and making sure that groups like the intel agencies are telling the truth, but instead to be their ally and to work with them and help obfuscate the truth on their behalf, then what good is the press? All the more reason now it makes sense why they're trying to censor conservative voices on social media and platforms such as YouTube. Because they need to control the narrative. They don't want legitimate journalism. I wouldn't even call myself a journalist, but at least I'm a person trying to look at facts and give my feeling on them. I'm not just trying to be an ally of one side. They don't want voices like me. They don't want conservative voices. It has to be all dominated by these media people, and they're not journalists. They're just mouthpieces for the establishment Democratic Party and the intel agencies. That's it. So I really recommend reading this article. I think it's fantastic. I'll link it below. It's a long read, but it's shocking. It's shocking. It's the best I've seen so far. Someone put together all of the evidence of just how terrible the media has been in this whole saga. And I don't know how they come back from this. They'll ignore it. They'll deflect because they control the cultural institutions of power. So not just the mainstream media, but also the entertainment industry, also academia, also Silicon Valley. Because they control all of that, they're able to get away with this. And so that's how we could have the same people that were duped by WMDs and the intel saying, we'll never leave the intel community lie to us like that again. 12 years later, defending all these lies from the intel agency and getting stories wrong over and over and over and over again with no repercussions. What are the repercussions for the media? They got incredibly wealthy. They got a lot of views. Places like NBC and people like Rachel Maddow, the careers took off because they were pushing these lies constantly over and over and over again. There won't be consequences. The incentive's there. Keep these lies up. Be more sensational. Go after Trump. Hashtag the resistance. That's the only thing that matters. And yet you'll still see people saying, oh, well, let's see a mainstream outlet reporting that. Who's reporting that? Just some random person online? Just Fox News? If it was a real story, the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN would comment on it. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, again, am I saying that means everything that all these media outlets said was a lie? No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. But I'm saying we have to take everything they say at this point with more of a grain of salt than we normally would have, because it's clear that they're not interested in being objective journalists at all. That is the vast majority of them. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be putting some more material out probably tomorrow. Recommend me to some friends. So, I look forward to the Mueller report coming out, at least the initial. It seems like tonight, which is Sunday night, we might see Barr's assessment of what he says the Mueller report says. And hopefully we get to read the report ourselves soon. So thanks, everyone, and have a good one.